So with the whole internet, I kind of thought
pure dropship model just because it's easier for them.
That, if he's sitting in an office, taking orders for other people, why can't I be that other person, the one giving him the orders? And I basically took the product that, he worked with. I started the website, bizchair.com, and, we put it online and started getting orders. And over the years, it's just slowly grown from, 1 or 2 office chair orders a day. Now we're doing, 300-400 orders a day.
This is the bigger part of the warehouse. This is where a lot of the shipping and receiving happens. The warehouse is about 303,000 square feet.
Okay.
And the actual office is about 24,000, which brings us up to about 327 total. So our competition really doesn't import from China. A lot of them focus on the pure dropship model just because it's easier for them.
Explain the dropship model.
Dropship business model is you basically put product online, a customer will come to your website, purchase it, you get the order, you then take that order and place it with the vendor who has a warehouse, anywhere in the US or several warehouses, and the vendor ships directly to the customer.
So they do that in order to
You're basically a middleman with no inventory, but you're at the mercy of the vendor, and then it's very competitive because obviously anyone can do it, there's very little capital required.
Sure.
And there could be 50 websites with the same product, and if you're $1 cheaper, people are going to buy it from the cheapest person. Why would you spend extra when it's the exact same product from the exact same warehouse ship?
If you have an idea, don't let anyone tell you you can't do it, because I've had people, other office furniture people who have been in the industry for years say, how does this guy do this? How's it possible? And it's just one of those things. If you have an idea, go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
Well, the great thing was about the internet at the time is nobody knew what color I was, they didn't know what race or ethnicity, what my background was. All they knew was my alias and that I could program computers.
From growing up in a house with a tin roof and no hot water, to learning computer programming at the local library after school, Ephraim Taylor started his first business venture at age 12, when he began making 3D video games and selling them to his friends in school for $10 a copy.
It all came about because at that time it was, games were very expensive. They were $49, $50, and because of a number of circumstances, I wasn't able to get my quota, I felt, the games in the house. So my mom jokingly said one day, Ephraim, why don't you figure out how to make your own video games? And through some application, reading a lot of books and a lot of time that I spent on the computer, I was able to do that. Then later on, I stay with the computers, started developing, websites and things like that. And I had what I call the entrepreneurial moment when you realize this is really what I want to do. I got paid $3,800 to do this website, and I realized at the moment in time that, wow, I'm doing pretty good, making, more than my dad because it's a 2-week assignment. But at that moment in time, I realized that I still was on the wrong side of the equation. I was still working for somebody else because the guys I built it for made $800,000. So they got $800,000, I got $3,800. Something was wrong with that equation. And for that moment on, I went on an entire quest to create my own company and pursuing my own dream. And so it really occurred to me when I hit high school. I had a multi-million-dollar enterprise, as far as internet company, I had 13 employees. My teacher had quit school to basically come work for us. And then we later went on to do a couple other things. And, since then, I've taken 2 companies public on the stock market before the age of 23. And now I'm the CEO of City Capital Corporation.
Well, I started really into paintball. I loved to play. I remember the night before I'd go play the next morning, I just couldn't sleep. And a family had an internet background. The internet was just starting to come into play, and had the idea, well, what if I could sell this stuff online? That would be great. I loved it. I mean, it was very easy for me to be passionate about the product. If I got into selling nuts and bolts, it probably wouldn't have done it for me. But because I was so interested in the product, and it got me so excited, and I liked the idea of the internet, and basically there was a potential out there. I didn't know. I mean, this could really take off, I thought.
What happens is, what is thinking? It's the process of evaluating the world, and we look out into infinite possibilities, and we begin to ask ourselves questions and then answer our own questions. And we do this consistently all day long to the tune of 60,000 thoughts per day. What I find is key in creating your life by design and uncovering your purpose and uncovering your passion is to condition yourself to ask questions that cause you to move in the direction of the things that are most important in your life.
I think you have to be passionate about what you're doing because there's enough other people out there who probably are, and if they have that natural energy, they can beat you at it. So if you find something you like, it's the old adage, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And I think that's really what got me started and got me interested, and to be able to push through those times where it's not so good. But just the idea really that there could be no limitation on what I could make here was pretty exciting for me.
I'm 23 years old now, and I started when I was just 9 years old, and I'm from Roanoke, Virginia. However, I got my start when I was 8 years old, and I had just seen the movie Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. I wrote a letter to Donald Trump, and I didn't ask my parents for help, and I didn't even tell them I was doing this because I was going to be embarrassed if I didn't hear back. So what I did was I said, "Dear Mr. Trump, my name is Cameron Johnson. I'm 8 years old. You probably haven't heard of me, obviously, but I'm coming up to New York City for the first time. I'm staying at your hotel, and the only thing I want to do is I want to see the suite where the movie was filmed." I never heard back from him, but when we got to the hotel, the receptionist leaned over and she said, "You must be Cameron." And she knew exactly who I was. And Mr. Trump had received my letter, and he had actually arranged for my parents and I to stay in the suite the entire time we were there. So that was my first taste at successful entrepreneurs, and I wanted to be just like Donald Trump after that.
After Cameron's first taste of the good life in the Big Apple and a brush with Donald Trump, he began his quest for success.
You're 9 years old when you start this greeting card type business, selling to your family and to your friends. How did you get the word out, and what was your motivation?
Sure, well, originally it started just as I printed some invitations. I showed them to my mom, and she said, "Wow, those are great. You can print the invitations to our holiday party we're having in a couple weeks." And I simply said, "Sure, if you pay me." So that's literally how I got my first order. And on the back of each of those 50 invitations, I said, "Printed by Cameron Johnson," just like Hallmark would do. And everyone that came to that party knew that Johnson's, 9-year-old son printed these invitations. That just led to more orders. Eventually, it led to a local news story in our hometown paper, and that just led to even more business, and it totally grew through word of mouth.
There's enough business for every young entrepreneur to make a fortune. That's what's so beautiful. We're in the most opportune time in human history.
So I started with literally $50, a 4th grade education, and just a computer and a printer. And I made several $1,000s over the next couple of years. And it wasn't until I was 12 when I started selling Beanie Babies over the internet that I started making real money. And when I was 12, I made $50,000 that year selling Beanie Babies just over the internet to people worldwide.
Cameron was offered $10 million in venture capital to grow his hot web company, CertificateSwap.com. He's also the author of You Call the Shots.
Well, to me, it was always a hobby, so I didn't do it for the business. I didn't do it for the money. The money was great, but what does 11 or 12-year-old do? He can't, he can't drive. I don't wear flashy clothes, any of those things. So it was always just for a hobby. I played sports growing up. I was in the Boy Scouts. I did all those things. But late at night, I wanted to run businesses, and I think it was because of that initial taste with Donald Trump, and then that inspired me to read books from Donald Trump, Michael Dell, Bill Gates, Richard Branson. I aspire to be just like them, and that's strictly my motivation.
There's so much information online for free or to be paid for that you'd almost have to have a blindfold on not to be able to get it, use it, and succeed from it. It's not the lack of information that's out there that stops people. It's the drive. It's the motivation. It's wanting to succeed. It's being sick and tired of where you are and seeing a future for your family. It's unexcusable, in my opinion, if you want more free time in your life, more time mobility, it's there for you. With the technology these days, it is the ripest time ever for the entrepreneurial spirit.
With the electronic media, in other words, When business started, first you have agriculture and you do barter. Then you got the industrial age and we start printing money. Then we got the electronic age and computers, and now we're going into the nanotechnology, which is money is going to go to totally invisible. And so the young world is born plugged in. They're going to be able to be better entrepreneurs than ever, and we need more of them, not less of them.
The greatest part of the internet is that we live in a generation where I don't know isn't a sufficient answer, because we can go on the internet and we can find the answer to whatever it is our problem is. So no matter what the problem is we face, we can find the answer. So whether it's you're having a problem with your business, whether you don't know how to sell something on eBay, no matter what the problem is, you can find the answer on the internet. And that's exactly what I was doing at an early age. It definitely puts everyone in an equal playing field. It doesn't matter your educational background or your business experience. Everyone can compete equally.
Simple as walking up to a web company who we found and just said, hey, this is what we're doing, these are our shirts. We knew nothing about computers. I still pretty much know nothing about computers. And we started as a web company. I mean, we never sold retail for like 7 years. We didn't sell any retail. It's like, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
You're 18 and you're thinking, God, I could be a millionaire. If I'm talking to somebody who's 18, I tell them they can be a millionaire before they're 20. It used to take 5 years. Today it doesn't take anywhere near 5 years. You're dealing in a world market today. The internet's got you hooked up to everybody in the world. There's never been a greater opportunity than right now. And now if I was saying that a month from now, it would still be true, because it's going to be even a greater opportunity a month from now. The way technology is moving us ahead, it's mind-boggling, the opportunities that are staring us in the face.
So you have a great idea. Where do you go from there? What's your first step?
This is where the office used to be.
And you look down on them out here?
Yeah, I look down, be up here high, these little low ceilings. And my desk was right here. We basically literally bought 12 shirts and sold them to buy 24 shirts and sold them to buy 48 shirts. And we were buying like maybe a dozen shirts at a time and getting like the worst deal ever. I think we were paying like $12 a shirt or something and selling them for 20. I was paying fighters, next to nothing at that time, because they weren't making a lot of money themselves. They were making, $1,000, $1,500 to fight in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So if I gave them an extra $300 or $400, they were like stoked. They felt like they were getting a great deal. So, and for us, people were on pay-per-view watching the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and they're watching these guys come out in these big tap-out logos and these tap-out shorts, and they didn't realize I'm only paying these guys like $300 or $400 or $500. It was just my regular paycheck I was paying them with, but it made us look big because they were seeing us on TV, so they figure, hey, we must have this big 30, 40,000 square foot, facility, and we're just shipping out clothes. They didn't know where, it's mouse in front of the flashlight again.
So with just a few bucks of his own money, Punkass found a really cool and creative way to market his clothing company. Now he needed to figure out how to handle the orders.
Right off the bat, I wanted to do 24-hour answering service, so that you could call any day, anytime, because we were getting a lot of orders from outside the country, and they're on different time zones. So I wanted to make sure that we took phone calls any time of the day. I just hooked up with an answering service and gave them a list of our products, and they did it right through the website, which was great because it looked like we had this vision of being a big company from the outside looking in. As we started to get bigger, we just knocked down the wall and go into the next one. And then as we got bigger, we knocked down the wall and went to the next one, and then the next one, then we got the ones across the way, so it just kept growing like that. You have to know that if you want to be big, you got to think big. And, sometimes you're worried because the money isn't there, but you got to believe in your mind that if you do it, the money will be there.
I do not have a college degree. I don't have a college education. I never went to college. I was an honor student. I was a really bright student in high school, but I did not go that route. I started my company, and I learned it totally organically. I learned it by messing up. I learned it by asking people questions. I knew nothing about t-shirts. I did not know what screen printing was. I did not know where to buy blank t-shirts. And that's like the most important thing that I want to impart on young entrepreneurs. Nobody knows what they're doing when they start. Nobody.
All throughout high school, I thought I wanted to do biotech and do sort of like lab research. And the summer before my senior year, or before my freshman year in college, I ended up with this internship at a great little biotech startup. And I was thrown into the lab and given way more responsibility than I should have been. And it was sort of exactly what I thought that I had wanted, and I just hated it. The guys there would tell jokes where the punchline would be like reverse transcriptase, and they'd be like wetting themselves, and I was just like, let me out of here. So I came into my freshman year at Yale with absolutely no idea what I wanted to do.
And I always caution people when they're starting out, don't think of the 120,000 steps that you have to take to get to where you're going. Just think of what you have to do today. I would just call up a chain store and I would say, who's your t-shirt buyer? Because here's the deal. Big chain stores are actually, this is a really big secret, but they're actually, in a lot of cases, easier to sell to than a one location mom and pop shop because those people are buyers. That is their title. That's what they do all day is buy stuff.
My printer told me, oh, you got to go to this trade show in Chicago called ASI and you know, you can advertise it like, put your logo here, you know, like a coffee mug that has, you know, your company's name on it or a t-shirt. Well, we were going to take our sacks there and say, you know, we can do the Red Bull sack or the, you know, Budweiser sack or whatever. Everyone loved the idea and no one bought anything.
With Far Out Foods, I started learning how to start a food company. Growing up poor, my grandma used to make our syrup for us, so we couldn't afford syrup. So what I did was, cooking in the kitchen, I learned how to make a little maple syrup, and I added strawberry and vanilla. And then I got a book called From Kitchen to Market, because I believe reading is truly, truly, truly the foundation of entrepreneurship. So when I got that book, it showed me how to take my product literally from kitchen to market. And so what helped me was to learn what conferences and conventions to attend. And I ended up attending the Food Marketing Institute in Chicago. It's called FMI. And it takes place every year. And I started networking and introducing myself and passing out my product sheets and my samples. And I did over 1.5 million in sales. And I was able to secure contracts. And I also ended up meeting the person and the company that would end up buying my food company, and it was Israeli Candy Company. So it worked out well.
People would say, you know, you didn't have the economic resources, I lacked the education. But I wasn't thinking about those as excuses. I looked at it as an opportunity. And so I went forward, I created the plan. You know, I wrote my first real business plan, probably on the back of my history homework assignment for this company. And I recognized the need that was there for high school and college students to find jobs, because we look in the newspaper, you gotta have a 4-year degree, you gotta be available 9 to 5. Where are we stuck at 9 to 5? At school. So, and football practice. So where was a place that you can go find the higher paying job, something that's maybe oriented towards your career, but using the internet to do it. So we created something that was like Monster.com, no sense of reinventing the wheel, but for high school and college students. So we found a niche that we were good in, and our story is that who better knows how to market to their audience than a high school or college student themselves? So we promoted our company like a party. We printed up flyers, we're tagging cars in the parking lot, security guards were running us off at schools because we didn't have money to run TV or Super Bowl ads. Right. And we really used press and media to our advantage. I mean, we sent out a press release that 2 high school students, you know, tried to help other students, and the newspaper started was a great story. So what that did is it got us plastered in the newspapers for 6 weeks straight, and we had 30,000 students slam into the website. And we're like, wow, we got all these students, but employers still aren't taking us serious enough to pay for jobs. But we managed to convince Pizza Hut to really become our first corporate client. And because we had that endorsement from a large Fortune 500 company, now everybody else wanted to sign on. So we had Pizza Hut, Papa John's, Citigroup, we had the military, and eventually, you know, 240 employers. And we just started talking to venture capitalists. They all said we were too young, didn't have enough management experience. So we had to raise it, you know, from Angel Capital, raise almost, you know, $750,000 in high school. For the company and the venture, and you know, the rest is kind of just history.
Millions and millions of young entrepreneurs that are watching this footage right now, a lot of them might think, well, I just don't have the money to start that business. I've got this great idea. What do you say to someone like that?
Use your noggin, not money. Every business I've ever started, subsequently, I started with no money. I make sure I start with no money. I don't want to put a dime in. There's people, and again, there's different philosophies. But to the people who don't have money, what is your choice? I'm going to spend the next 6 years getting financing. Well, you're old and gray, maybe you get financed. By then, the business is useless and it's gone, right? You don't have to worry about getting financed. So several things you can do. Number one, start your business, but start it in a different way. Number two, start a different business. It doesn't take any money. Number three, you know, if you want, you can go to the banks and all these angels and stuff and you can pray. That's great. But let me give you a secret one that again, if it wasn't for this group here, young people getting started, I would never tell you for free. I'm going to give you one here. Pre-sale. Use what I use, customer financing. If you notice in my seminars, there's no such thing as a receivable. Nobody takes a seminar and then pays later. It doesn't happen, okay? So you can get customers. You can get, if you don't think, you go, well, hey, my customers aren't going to buy this. Not now. Guess what? If you can't.
And basically, he was a rep